So you can see these are the challenges. How to integrate renewable energy in the existing energy market. That is the challenge. How to come to a new energy design market, having in mind that renewable energies in this phase, they don't have marginal costs, so they are always baseload. And they are suppressing the others out of the market. And we have to do a lot in this handling. I cannot go in detail, but I only want to mention that the main topic we are confronted with now is the question how to integrate it, bigger and bigger shares of renewable in an existing energy market, knowing that the renewable energy is always baseload, if it is there. It has no marginal cost. All the others, nuclear, lignite, coal, and so on, have marginal costs and are used later. That is a system, what we call the merit order system, with this consequence, which gives us a lot of additional headaches. No, wait a moment. Our expectation from the very beginning was, if you invest even more in science and technologies, and especially in market access, you will decrease the cost curve. In a time where we have to expect that there is an increase of the cost curve in the other energies. And if you go on with one, you see this happens. When we started to subsidize photovoltaic, we had to pay for 1 kilowatt hour of photovoltaic something like 45, 46 euro cent per kilowatt hour. Enormously high amount of money. And you see, due to the fact of technical progress and economies of scale and market access, we are now down, is even further down. I have to actualize this graph. We are now at something like 12 to 13 euro cent per kilowatt hour. And you know, I was in Africa for quite a long time. I was back in the wonderful 40 years celebration of UNEP in Nairobi. And then I toured a little bit through Africa. Wherever I was, people in Africa come back and say, when are you down with the cost of renewable energies on a level we can afford it? And I asked them, what is the level of you can afford it? And they informed me it must be well below 10 euro cent per kilowatt hour. Being 8 years in Africa, I was very critical and was convinced that's even too high. But they came back arguing, look, if you come well below 10 euro cent, in a country like Germany, we have 900 solar hours per year in average, 900. If you go to Africa, you have 3,000 and 3,500 solar hours per year. So you have a totally other structure. And you must be aware that this is also an advantage, that you can have not only an integrated grid, but you can have islands of grids, so that is also an advantage for a continent like Africa and lots of others. So, as mentioned, we are now about some 12, 13 euro cent per kilowatt hour. The development goes on with new technologies, and by the way, also by the production of the solar panels in Asia. We import nearly all the solar panels quite now from Asia, and this gives us a lot of headaches at home because we have to convince the German payer that they are subsidizing jobs in Asia, but this is the normal development. We have a working division and a market division in the world, and we cannot expect that we are only exporting, others not. We go on and you see again, excuse me that this is in German, but I couldn't translate it. I can it, but maybe I can it, I hope it. What is very important, because lots of people are convinced after our energy change, the price level went up. It was going exactly the other way around. The price was in the beginning, in July 2011, on something like 6.7 euro, 5.7 euro cent, and it's now down to less than 5 euro cent. So it is even 1 cent less than before. So the main part of our society benefiting from this development is industry. Because if you see the next slide, that is the structure of our electricity price calculation. And we have only a share of something like 38% linked with the production cost of electricity. And then you have the net costs, and then you have taxes and others, and then you have the support for renewables. These are quite now 3.6 euro cent per kilowatt hour. But this is not to pay from the industry. So they benefit from the decrease without paying for the benefits. It is always very necessary to underline that it is not, for the time being, a difficulty for the German export-oriented industry. Maybe quite in the contrary, we have a decreasing price level here, as you can see it quite easily. If you go to Africa, what I mentioned before, you see the blue a little bit on the top. That's Europe. That is our sunshine. If you go to Africa, you see the increase of sun intensity. Needless to say that then some people come to the idea, why don't we harvest solar energy in Africa and transport this to Europe as well? That was one of the ideas and is still one of the projects, what we call the Desert Tech project. And you see here that there is a good cooperation with the MENA countries, so the Middle East and North African countries, to produce with concentrated solar power mainly, not with photovoltaic, solar there, and bring it back to Europe in part, and the other part to use in Africa itself. Quite a challenging project, not directly linked with our energy change in Germany because it is a longer perspective. You cannot handle it in the next 5-6 years, mainly due to the infrastructure. You need new grid connection. For the time being, we have from Europe to Africa only one line coming from southern Spain to northern Morocco, nothing else. And you cannot integrate a lot of electricity in the European market, and the investment in this field are technically and economically quite a challenge. But you see it goes on in this direction, and there's a lot of good reason to go in this path. What is very important as well, all this is the basis of a lot of technical changes and inventions. One is the question, what is the grid? Right now we have, as you see, a centralized grid based on large entities, and those entities are producing electricity continuously. Nuclear power plants, coal power plants, and so on. In the future, we have a decentralized grid, lots of production places for solar and sun, small entities, and discontinuously producing. It was finally decided scientifically there is no sun in the night. So it is discontinuously. How to handle it? This is a new request for the grid development. We discussed it in Japan. Of course, you have the clear parallel situation here as well. There are new technologies, what we call the smart grid. That's the interrelation between the producer and the consumer, that you have a dialogue, that you can say, we don't want to have electricity in a time when there is a peak and the price is extremely high. So we have also a better demand management from the electricity point of view. And we try to develop the technology of power to gas. If you have electricity, you can use electrolysis and to produce gas, specifically hydrogen, out of this electricity with a better transport and storage possibility. We come more and more to what we call the consumer, prosumer. These are those entities who are producing for their own demand, and what they need not at home, they can integrate in the net. If you want to see a prosumer, please go to UNEP's headquarters in Nairobi, where my good friend and successor Achim Steiner